Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and this week we're going to be focusing on sustaining attacks. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be moving into a 2v2 activity plus some floaters. But before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we're working with this week and the equipment that we'll be using. Now, for players this week, we're going to have 12 outfield players plus 2 goalkeepers. If you have more outfield players, that's fine. We can just add them into different areas in the session. And then if you don't have 2 goalkeepers, let's say you have 1 goalkeeper, can you get a coach or a volunteer to go in goal, so let's say parents or something. And if you can't have any of that, okay, you can just use one side using small-sided goals, and we can obviously adapt that for later parts of the session as well. Now, in terms of the equipment, we're going to be focusing on using balls, bibs and cones, and then obviously if you don't have 2 goals, you can use poles as an alternative. Now, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, okay, we're going to have 30 yards of depth in here, okay, and then the width in central areas, okay, is going to be either 15 and 20 yards, okay, and then either side here for the floaters, they can just have 5 to 10 yards themselves. So maximum you're going to have 40. Okay, and then minimum you're going to have is 25 if you do 15, 5 and 5. But I would say give the floaters a little bit more room, okay, so they can actually manoeuvre in there a little bit with the ball. And then in this area here, maybe start off smaller, see if you can still get the attacks working well. And then if you don't need to, obviously you don't need to increase it if you feel like you do. And then you can, or you could start off with more width and then decrease it if you think it's a little bit too easy. So what we're going to have is, we're going to have 3 teams of 4. So these players will swap over with an attacking team, okay, after a set time. So the Reds are here, going to be attacking this goal. The Blues are here, attacking this goal. So the coach will play into one of the teams to start. So let's say play into the Blues. They're looking to drive into the space, okay. These players look to close them down. And then they're trying to use the wide players to obviously keep the attack going. So if this player makes the run here and there's no ball on, okay, instead of just trying to have a shot, it might get blocked. Can he play out to the wide player, and then it might entice one of the defenders to come out, and then we could slide the ball in for a finish. Okay, so it's making sure that we keep the attack going, keep the attack moving, okay, and not bringing it to a standstill. Because the last thing we want to do is have the ball in here, we get close out and we stop the ball, okay, and then we're looking for something to do, okay. Whereas, can we play that ball out wide? Okay, you might get 2 defenders. Go attacking, moving towards the goal, which means it can get dropped back. We might be able to create that space to then score. Now, as soon as the first attack is finished, so even if the Reds win the ball back and then score, the next ball will then go into the Reds. So it'll get played in quickly towards them. Okay, so a little bit further up the pitch here is the start point. So then can we look to attack that space in behind? So this player here could play into a wide player, and then they could make that run, okay, across the front of the defender to open up the space for, let's say, the wide player to take the ball across the body. This player might move around the back of the defender, gets played into space, and then they finish. Again, so we're focusing on attacking the space, okay, how are we receiving the ball, okay, are we moving the ball quickly, making sure that ball doesn't stop, okay. Now, once that's finished, the players will just drop out, okay, so the 2 attackers for the Blues will go back to there, 2 Reds will go to here, and then the 2 wide players who are like the floaters, okay, will swap over with the other side, and then we can look to go again. Now, after a set amount of goals, so you might say, okay, after each pair, okay, has had 2 or 3 goals each, then we can swap, let's say, the Greens over with the Blues, okay, and then after another 3, swap the Reds over with the Blues again, okay, so players are getting different roles, and you've got 3 teams, and you can make it a bit competitive by obviously every time a team scores, they can get a point, so the players start competing with each other as well. So making sure that we can use these wide players in possession, so they're ready to receive the ball. So the Reds have got the ball here, okay, making sure we're able to receive it. So can we get one side dropping in to receive it, one side stretching the space to receive that ball, okay, and then we can get runners off the ball to receive it and then look to score. Okay, so the attacker's got to be aware of the surroundings, be proactive to get on the ball and be clinical in that final third. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now moving into the first of our small-sided games, and we're going to be focusing on sustaining attacks and then counter-pressing in the final third if we lose the ball. Now, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, okay, you're going to start with 30 yards of width, okay, and then in terms of depth, we're going to have 25 yards in here, 10 yards in here, and then 15 yards in here. And it's going to start with the goalkeeper from this side, the attacking team, which is going to be the Reds. Now, the centre-backs, or like the centre midfielders, okay, are going to stay in this area here in possession. So then if the ball's lost in here, they can push up the pitch and help support, okay, the press. Now, the attackers, okay, can either stay in here and put pressure on the midfielders, or they can drop into this area if they want to. If they can sense that the ball's going to be won, they can go in there and attack. Now, the 4v4 in here are going to stay in there. They can swap over with a player any time. Okay, but they've got to make sure there's always 4 players in there. So when the ball starts with the keeper, okay, they're obviously going to look to play into one of the 2 players in here, midfielders, defenders, however you want to use them, okay? And then they're going to look to play into the attackers. So the thing in here is, can we score quickly, okay? So where's our route to goal? Open out, score. Receive the ball again. Now if the ball goes out behind the goal, okay, or the keeper saves it and it goes out, the Blues can then attack. So it'll get played into these 4 players. Then what are we looking to do? We're looking to press high, okay? So force the opposition, okay, backwards first, okay? Making sure we're not jumping all ahead of the ball when a player receives it and they can turn. So we're behind the player here, we cut off the sides, okay? And then when they look to take a touch in the direction, can we look to go and press that ball to win it? Now this is where these players have got to be aware, because if they're spread out like this and we look to turn, it can be a ball played through. So making sure we're in line with the players ahead of us, so that when a ball gets played into here, it might get sent into there. Someone might take a touch forward and we can make it a triangle there with a player in behind. Now we've got protection, okay, in terms of trying to stop the ball going through. But it's got to be quick. We've got to sense these things, got to anticipate it, making sure as soon as the ball is lost, that the players know they've got to be on it, okay, and they're not getting the heads up in the air, putting the heads down, making sure they're ready to react and get into a position to try and win the ball back. So then if the ball tries to get played forward, we intercept it, we look to score. Now the teams can swap over after a set time, okay, so that you can work on the counter press with both teams, the attacks with both teams. So when we're saying about sustaining attacks, it's that if we've got the ball in this area here and there's no options on, okay, instead of trying to force something which might not be there, okay, so if there's, let's say there's a lack of movement, okay, we can go in and coach it, but if there's nothing there at the time, can we look to keep the ball, okay? Then we can look to talk about our movement, again, look to get the ball into areas to deliver in there and then score. So it's got to be done, like I say, quickly. So moving the ball quickly. So all that means is that once we've got the ball in here, making sure we're not stopping the ball, getting our head up and then putting our head down again, taking another touch. If there's a pass on, can we play it? Okay, if there's a pass on, okay, can we play it? And then think about our movements. Once we played the ball, how can we support the player in possession? How can we support the team in terms of, can we make a movement in behind to draw a defender out, to then go in and finish? And then again, for the Blues, if they win it back, they're just looking to get the ball into these 2 players, either in this area or one of them might pull into here to go in and then finish into the goal. Okay, so we want the keeper here to be alert as well. So can they be ready to come off their line? So when a player comes into here, they can close them down, okay, make the save, and then again, get the attack going to get in there and finish. So we're trying to work at a high intensity, a high tempo, making it uncomfortable for the opposition, okay? So when they win the ball back, they're thinking, oh, we've got to make the perfect pass to get out, okay? Because we're closing off the pitch and making it difficult for them to win the ball back and then go and attack again. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, now moving into the final part of this week's session. We're now moving into the second of our small-sided games. This time is focusing on keeping possession of the ball to then attack. And then once we're losing the ball, can we look to win it back quickly? And obviously the team who does win it back, they're looking to score. Now, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, we're going to have 40 yards of depth, and we're just going to have a halfway line for 20 yards, which I'll explain in a second. And we're going to have 30 yards of width. Now, if this is a little bit too big or too small based on the numbers that you have, you can look to increase it or decrease it. If you have one goalkeeper, then you're just going to have one goal to look to score in, or you could have smaller sided goals on the other side. Now, the team in possession, so we're going to have the Blues to start, okay, are looking to do a set amount of passes before they score. So if you want to start off with 5, that's fine. You could do 7, you could do 10, okay? And the more you progress it, the more you can add more passes in. Now, the reason we've got the halfway line here is that once they've done, let's say they're doing 7 passes, once they've made, wherever the 7th pass is received, they then have to score in the opposite half, okay? Because if we do passes with the goalkeeper, because they're included, let's say we go 5, 6, 7, and then score, okay? That's not a realistic attack. So if they do 5, 6, 7, then they look to open out, kind of look to penetrate into space and then go forward, okay? So obviously the players are free to move anywhere, so they could have, let's say, 4 players in here, you could have 4 players in here, however, it doesn't really matter where they are, okay? But obviously we're looking to stretch the pitch, okay, to be able to play through as well, and also relay it onto players the importance of using these players, the keepers, because it gives them an 8v6, and also if the players are marked, you've got a player to be able to switch the player be able to play through the lines, okay, and then stretch to be able to open out the pitch again, okay. So ball will start with the coach, they'll play into the Blues, okay, and the Blues looking to receive the ball, so there's 1 pass, player might receive between the lines, opens out, there's 2 passes, 3, 4, 5, let's say we're playing starting with 5 passes, now we can score, but where can we score? The opposite half. So then what are we trying to do? We're trying to play forward quickly, okay, so we play into a wide area, Reds look to recover, okay, but we can play into a striker, we look to score. What happens then? Coach gets the next ball, okay, play into the team again, they get the ball and then go again. So for the Reds, stay switched on, okay, when they concede, let's not lose our shape, okay, let's not all just start running around, okay, after the ball, let's make sure that we're getting players close to the ball, but then the next player nearest isn't 15 yards away, okay, the next player in's close, okay, we're making it difficult to play across the pitch, okay, so when a ball comes into an area, we can look to pressure it. Now, if the Reds win the ball back, they can score in any goal, okay, so what are we trying to do as Blues? Similar to before, can we look to counter press on transition? Can we look to close the pitch? So the nearest man, okay, will obviously look to put pressure on the ball, and the next player is, can he look to close off the space around to make it difficult, to force an error, okay, and then what do? Look to keep the ball again. So the Reds don't swap over until they've scored, and then obviously they'll be the team in possession, and then the Blues will be the team out of possession. So there's 2 passes, 3, 4, 5, you're playing to the keeper. Now what do? We've got to work the ball into the opposite half. What do the Reds do? They could drop back, okay, they get an extra player in and go 4 and 2, make it difficult for us to play around. Then what do we need? We need movement off the ball, stretching the pitch, can we get players on the overlap? And then can we look to attack in here and score? So again, intensity, okay, being proactive to get on the ball, not waiting for the ball to come for us, waiting for a teammate to do something. Attack the space, okay, so once we've got a couple of passes, can we look to switch it, okay, and move the opposition about? Once we've done the passes, then nice and sharp, get into the opposite half and look to score. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view all of our exclusive content. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.